want to thank all of our candidates for coming tonight, and we will begin our forum. Let me kind of let you know a little bit about how it's going to be working. Each of the candidates will do an opening statement for 4 minutes, and during that opening statement, we've asked that the candidates would kind of include the following things. First of all, that they would tell us about what their qualifications are and why they're interested in becoming a board member. And then secondly, we would like them to tell us what their top priorities are for the Vacaville Unified School District. And number 3, we'd like them to tell us their assessment of the Common Core state standards and what they see as its future. And number 4, what is their position on the $194 million school district bond that will be on the ballot in November? So those are the 4 things that we've asked the candidates to cover in their opening statement. And then following that, members of this group have submitted questions, and we'll ask those questions to the candidates, and they will have 1 minute to answer each one of those questions. And we did send out most of the questions to the candidates ahead of time so they would have an opportunity to prepare. So we want their best answers tonight. So I, again, appreciate everything that you guys have done, and I appreciate you coming to share your ideas with our community. So we will start off with Dolores at this end, and I invite you to come up with you're the lucky one.
Yes, Mike. Working. Okay. First, I'd like to just thank you for inviting me. My name is Dolores Roach. I am a local business owner. I own my own business for the last 10 years. I am a public affairs, public relations consultant. I am also a mom and grandmom. I have a student in Vacaville schools, a grandson in Vacaville schools. My educational background includes a bachelor's degree in journalism from UC Berkeley and a master's degree in radio, television, communications from San Francisco State. And I will just say, this is not bragging, but just to show you how determined I am, I did put myself through college while I was a young widowed mom of 4 very small kids. My work background includes both a public and private sector work. I think it's important for a board member to have a wide berth of experience because board members are leaders and managers. That's what they're supposed to do. I've also worked 15 years in the public sector for cities and counties, with 10 of those years having been for the city of Fairfield. I've also been on a school board prior to this. I ran for and won a seat on the Emory Unified School Board and stayed there for 5 years. I was president for 2 of those years, so I do know a little bit about what it takes to set policy for a school district. I'm running for this position because, 1, I do have a great affinity for being involved, and that was kind of instilled in me by my grandparents, who I watched as a kid fight for the right to vote in my home state. And I know you all like your Constitution, so I got my own copy too, and so we know that we had poll tax until 1964, when that was wiped out. My grandparents were some of the people who fought against it. So I do have a great affinity for just being involved in process, in the policymaking process. But I'm running for this position because I'd like to see our schools be #1 in the state, in the country, and they're not quite here yet. I'd like to see every child in our district receive a world-class education, including those with special needs. I'd like to see our traditional schools be the first choice of every parent for a quality education for their child. And that is what every parent wants. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter what their means are, it doesn't matter what their socioeconomic status is. Every parent wants the same thing, a quality education for their child. If I am elected, my priorities will be the implementation of the new state standards in a way that benefits every child, including those with special needs. My biggest priority will be overseeing and making sure that the implementation of something called the Local Control Accountability Plan is done well. That document is a very important document. In case you haven't read it, it requires that students and teachers have the resources that they need. It requires that facilities be such that they are conducive to 21st century learning. I'm going to stop there because I don't have any more time. However, I will say that a couple of my other priorities will be advocating for after-school tutoring labs at both our middle schools and our high schools, and advocating for computer labs at our middle schools and our high schools. Enough to accommodate lots of kids. We don't have that now. I'll stop. Thank you.
For the rest of the speakers, we do have a timer over here. Bob, raise your hand. And when it's 15 seconds before the end of your 4 minutes, he'll raise a red card. So kind of keep your eyes on Bob over there. Appreciate that. Thank you. David McCallum.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank you for inviting us all here this evening. I think this is a very important thing, one that forums like this are very informative for the community in general. Of course, we're glad to see media here tonight as well, so that we can get a good full-fledged idea of the community of where all the candidates stand on all the issues. I am a board member. I have one term under my belt. I'm running for a second term. And I'm running for, well, first a little bit about my background. I was raised in Vacaville. I lived in Vacaville since 1967, when I was just a young boy, just a baby, thank you. I went to Vacaville schools. I went to Alamo School, Willis Jepson, and Vacaville High School. Both of my kids, I also married here, and both of my kids went through Vacaville schools and graduated from them, and now they're college graduates as well. Thanks largely to the quality education I think the Vacaville District gave them, so I'm very proud of them both. The reason I'm running, there are a number of reasons really, but there are a couple of priorities that I have, and one of them is fiscal solvency. This district is very lucky in that we have been very fiscally prudent during this time of economic upheaval ever since the big collapse of 2008. And we were, I think, blessed with a chief business officer and with a strategy that actually allowed the district to save money, to hold back a certain amount in reserve, while at the same time requiring sacrifices, unfortunately, across the board from all of our employee groups. And that goes from top to bottom. And there was general buy-in in that effort because everyone was aware of the financial straits that the district was in. Thanks to those efforts, we were able to maintain a positive financial certification. There are three certifications a school district can have. One is negative, one is positive, and one is I'm sorry, I beg your pardon? Qualified, thank you very much. I always forget that one. That's the mid-range one. And at a time when the most districts around the state were falling into a qualified, some even negative status, very proud of the fact that Vacaville Unified maintained its positive certification throughout that time period. What does that mean on the practical level? It meant that when we had to borrow money, we could borrow that money at lower rates. So that was something I'm very proud of. The other issue that I really want to deal with in a major way in a second term is the implementation of Common Core. Common Core is it's a polarizing issue with a lot of the public, largely because I think it's not well understood. And to be frank, we in the district and educators in general haven't done a good job explaining exactly what Common Core is, how it works, what it covers, and how it will be implemented. And that's one of the things that we really are focusing on now, as we recognize that there's a great deal of trepidation, because these are pieces of curriculum and these are methods of teaching which are brand new to a lot of people. They're not new to some of our older teachers, some of whom say they taught this way years ago until they were told they couldn't anymore. But it is a new system for a lot of people, and so part of our effort is to get the word out about how exactly that works and take some of the mystery out of the way we're going to be teaching in our schools now, a way which ideally is going to be very effective. So that's another issue, another main focus of mine. And as Dolores mentioned, I would like to focus as well on the LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan. This is something that we spent as a district 9 months gathering all the feedback and information from the community. The state tasked every school district with this in California it was a directive. It was simply, it came down from on high in the state of California. You will develop a plan based on input from your community stakeholders on what they want to see in their school district. Sorry, I apologize. We did develop that over a 9-month period. We have started to implement that now, and that's what we want to do going forward, is make sure that implementation with all that feedback is done well. So thank you very much.
Need the glasses.
Shelley Daly.
Hi, I'm Shelley Daly, and again, as those before me said, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and speak to you. So I wrote mine out because I wanted to make sure I covered everything. So if I look down, please give me that. But one of the things you need to know about me is education has been my job for the last 34 years. And it's not just a job to me, it's my passion. And that's why I'm on the school board, and that's why I want to run again. I was appointed last year, and I've spent all year learning and making a decision of whether I thought I was making a contribution to the board, and learning the difference between micromanaging and being a good school board member, understanding what my responsibilities and jobs are, and I'm just getting up to speed. I have to say that I've worked with the incumbents this year, and we are a very strong board. We differ in our philosophies and our opinions, but that's a good thing for your board, because that way we have very frank discussions and we work through problems, but when we end, there's no animosity and we're able to move on, and I think make the best decision for the children and the community of Vacaville. So in education, I was there for 34 years, let me tell you. I started as a teacher in our district in 1977 at Elmira School. I then became the vice principal there, went on to become the principal of Markham School for 17 years, where I started the Alternative Cooperative Program, the Spanish Immersion Program, brought Healthy Start grants, wired the school for the internet. My thing has always been, what's out there in education and what do we need to do to support our children to get the best education possible? That's always been my focus. Create a program for every child, not fit every child into a program. After I was principal at Markham, I spent the last 2 years of my career in the district as the after-school person who organized all of the activities after school for 4 grants, and for every K-12 child in the district. I brought everything from drama to financial classes, K-12, and that was a wonderful experience, and I touched a lot of people in the community that way. Now I work for UC Davis with teacher credential candidates, so I am in the classroom still working with people who are becoming teachers, going into different districts, and that gives me the ability to see what other districts are doing to face the challenges we face in education today, and I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to bring to the board. Another reason that I feel it's good for me to be there. My top 3 priorities for the district right now, because they will change and evolve as things change and evolve, but right now the first thing is Measure A. I believe passing this bond will make our schools better schools. I believe we provide a great education. We have strong teachers, but our facilities need help, and we want to make our community a place where people come. And what's one of the first things people with kids think about? What are the schools like? And we want our schools to look like the incredible teaching that's going on in them. And of course, we're getting better at that. My second priority is, of course, what my people before me said, the oversight of the local accountability plan and the funding that goes with that. Our job is not to micromanage that. We hired people to do their jobs, but our job is to oversee and make sure it's being done. The second priority, my third priority is to rebuild trust in the district. When I started working here, everybody seemed to work together, the community, the teachers, and the administration and the school board. And I think that eroded during the years when we had poor money coming in, when we had to make cuts, and when there were different personalities running the district. We need to build that trust back so our teachers, thank you, feel really comfortable. Common Core is an essential part of what is going on now, and I believe that it's going to make us globally be able to compete. So again, I believe what Dave said, there are misunderstandings and myths, and we need to get the facts out so people can make decisions about it. That would be it. Thank you.
Whitman, thank you.
Slightly taller. My name is Wood Whitman. I've been a lifelong learner. I'm inquisitive around the district. I'm known for poking my head into the closets, the storage rooms, as well as classrooms in the 5 years I've been on the board. I'm married late in life. We had kids. Started using the library. That's here in Vacaville. I've been a resident for 44 years. Joined the Friends of the Library. Ended up in the Library Commission, both the city and the county. Kids went to school. Ended up in Alamo's PTA, their site council. Kids progressed in school. I ended up on the Budget Advisory Committee for the district. That was about 15 years ago. I've been on the Budget Advisory Committee almost steadily for the last 15 years. 2 of our kids have graduated from Vacaville High School now. The third is a junior over there. So I'm still interested in the school district, and even after Tail-End Charlie graduates, I'm still going to be interested in what goes on in the school district. I ran for school board 5 years ago because I really was interested in what went on. I won that election, and I feel that I've done a good job on the board. Dave and I both ran first and second in that election. And we changed the composition of the board, and we have done some good things. We've steered the board through this district through tough financial times, and we've kind of turned the ship around, and things are looking better. I also will continue to donate to pledge my salary back to the district. I've done that for the last 5 years. I will continue that if I'm re-elected for the next 4 years. My top 3 issues. I want to have safe, comfortable, happy students because they come to school. Our graduation rate is not what it should be. Part of that is due to attendance. Kids that go to school graduate from school. We need to bring that up. I'd also like more education, more programs, more opportunities. That goes from STEM to career technical education. Not everybody is going to go to college. Common Core, it's here. Our school board can't do much about it. Our LCAP will control how we go about it. We'll get our results and we can score ourselves and move forward and continue to improve. My daughter graduated from Sonoma State just this last May. She was a history major. She did it in 4 years, another good product of Vacaville schools. She feels that Common Core will increase college students' historical knowledge. So she thinks it's a good program. I do too. I'm a little tired of having to swallow programs like they're coming down out of a fire hose and all I want is a little drink of water. We've had an awful lot of change in the last 5 years. We do need to keep changing, innovation, new things come along, but the pace has been very fast. We need to slow down, let things settle in. The one thing I've learned in going to seminars from the California School Boards Association as a board member is that it takes 2-3 years before you find out if a program's really going to work or not. My last issue is the bond. That's very important. I fully support it. I think that all the incumbent members of the board support that. I went to public school in North Dakota. My parents and their peers and other citizens paid for the schools back there. I guess it's my turn now to pay for schools. So I support the bond. Our students, our staff, even the citizens, that's 15 seconds, right? Our students, our staff deserve good facilities. Vacaville has a really good reputation. Companies locate here, Genentech, all the pharmaceuticals, some of the other manufacturing companies. because we have good schools. We need to keep improving on that. And as I said, I support the 4 incumbent members.
Thank you. It's Tracy Stacy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Stacy. So I'm actually very excited to be here tonight. Thank you, this opportunity. I come with a unique set of qualifications. I've been involved in the school district for the last 2 years. I have 3 children. I have a 5-year-old started kindergarten this year, a 12-year-old who's in 7th grade, and my oldest is 15, who's a sophomore here in school, so I will be around for a while. But I graduated from Vacaville High School, went to school here my whole life, and I'm an entrepreneur. I have been in business. I've been publishing a magazine for the last 9 years called Primetime Living. I really believe in the power of not only literacy and learning, but disseminating information and creating partnerships. So for the last 15 years, I've worked in long-term care. I have relationships with some of you here, and really have had the blessing of seeing bureaucracies change through tenacity, good communications, and relationship building. And have a proven track record of those really difficult bureaucracies that who've done something one way always and don't necessarily believe that there's a different way to do things. I'm getting them to try new things. I'm really proud of this district. I think that a great school system is an anchor to a great community, and I think we're a good school system that could and should be great. So I happen to think all of the changes that we're experiencing in the district are opportunities. And I think that change, while it could be scary and intimidating, it can also be an amazing opportunity for good things for our community. My top 3 priorities with my running mates we want you to be able to see your tax dollars at work. We want you to have participated in the process. We want to have heard from you, and we want you to see that your kids, your grandkids, your neighbors' kids are getting the education that we're all paying for. And because we've done a good job in communicating with you, it would be obvious. You would have less questions, you would be proud and part of the process. When we talk about transparency, we talk about transparency with inclusion, with families in marginalized communities, and families with special needs, and families with gate kids, and to really have everyone in the fold to be a big part of the process, and to be really honest and upfront, to be proactive in how we communicate, to have a consistent relationship with the news media. That has to happen to Shelley's point, to earn the community's trust. This campaign has taught me one very big thing, and that is trust is broken for one reason or the other. And I think that moving forward, there's so much opportunity to create trusting partnerships, and which would be great for our kids, because the outcomes is either money or programs or opportunities for our kids. And public safety. All of us we're shocked the sheriff is endorsing myself, Judy, and Jeremy strictly on the public safety plan, our student and teacher safety, because of a unfortunate circumstance that happened in the district that should have been or could have been handled differently. And we want to really recognize that we've done some great things in our district with bullying, but there's a lot more work to do. There's a lot more work to be done in being proactive. And one of my strengths is I'm on many boards. I'm the chair of the Senior Coalition for Solano County. I work with the Public Authority, IHSS, and all the senior roundtables and youth roundtable. I've been on the Budget Advisory Committee for the last 4 years with our district. I'm also currently appointed to the Citizens Oversight Committee at Vacaville Unified. And at the end of the day, what we have seen is we have to be able to prioritize lots of things at once. So a school district is the same way. We can't do one thing at a time, or lots of things are going to fail. And so what I bring is the ability to keep lots of priorities in the air and help them all stay equitable, and that our focus is manageable. My assessment of Common Core is, at the end of the day, that was a grassroots effort that kind of got out of hand. So here we are, it's in our lap, and we are mandated and responsible and have to do the best job we can, because our kids deserve it. And as far as the bond goes, I think that oversight and accountability, when it's passed, if it's passed, will be the most important part of that conversation. I think that our district needs it. I think it should be non-negotiable for the quality of our community and for our kids. But the more important part is what happens if it's passed, and what do we do with the money, and how do we make sure that we keep our fidelity to our promises if the voters say yes. So, thank you.
Next is Jeremy Jeffries.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. people that know me, and there's a few people in the room that do, would say that I'm not a polished, slick politician. I'm not. But what I am is a hard-working teacher who's had 15 years of professional experience in the field. I have a master's degree in education. I'm also a military veteran that's been serving our country for 18 years. I'm a lifelong resident of Vacaville. This is my hometown. This is where I grew up. This is where I went to school. This is where I'm raising my family. I'm a small business owner. I'm a husband and a parent. I have 2 wonderful daughters. My oldest daughter is a senior at Wood High School, and my youngest daughter is in kindergarten at Callison Elementary. I'm also a community volunteer. I'm on the board of directors for the Vacaville Public Education Foundation, or VPEF. I'm with the City of Vacaville's Community Emergency Response Team, or VCERT team. And I'm a volunteer with the Solano County Sheriff's Department Sheriff's Posse, which is a community outreach program for the Sheriff's Department. I'm running for school board for one simple reason. 22 years ago, when I graduated high school, Vacaville had the best schools in the county, in fact, maybe the best schools in the entire area. And today, unfortunately, that's not the case. Over these last 6 months that I've been doing my campaigning, I've probably talked to at least a dozen different parents that live here in Vacaville that told me that they took their kids out of Vacaville schools and put them in Travis Unified Schools or private schools, or began homeschooling their kids because Vacaville schools weren't getting the job done, and Vacaville schools weren't giving them as parents or their students the options and opportunities that they wanted to see. I think that our students, our parents, and our community deserve better. I think that they can get better than what we're at right now. Right now in Vacaville, almost 1/3 of our schools are in program improvement. So what that means is 1/3 of the schools almost here in Vacaville are risk being taken over by the state because they're not performing well enough. We could be doing a better job. Last year in our small town of Vacaville, we had 114 students drop out of high school because we're not serving their needs. We could be doing better. And I'm sure Chris in the past has talked about CTE programs and developing career pathways and that kind of stuff, and I'm all for that. Let me tell you this. Last year in the state of California, there was a career pathways grant. The state of California gave out $250 million to schools and school districts throughout the state to develop these career pathways so that when our students exited high school, they had career skills. Vallejo Unified School District, for example, received $6 million. Vacaville received 0. We didn't get any. Twice now, over these last few weeks, as we've been doing these speaking engagements as a candidate panel here, I've heard some of the incumbents indicate that over the last 4 years they felt like they've done a good job and Vacaville schools are good enough. I disagree. I think Vacaville schools could do better. We could do better, and I think in fact we could do a lot better here in schools in Vacaville. And I think our students, our parents, and our community deserve better than what they're getting right now. My top 3 priorities when I'm on the board are going to be very, very simple. Number 1, I want to get back to classroom-centered decision-making. And I think this is where my background and experience as a classroom teacher for 15 years really comes into play. Because I can understand how the decisions made up here at the board level are going to impact the kids in the classroom. I understand it because I've seen it in my own classroom for 15 years now. My second priority is to drastically improve communication between students, parents, community members, staff, and the school district. I think in that one particular area, the school district has been lagging over the last few years. If we're not going out and actively communicating with the students, the parents, the community members, the staff, and finding out what's going right and what's going wrong, then how can we address their problems and their concerns? My last priority once I'm on the board is to improve school safety. I think that all of our kids deserve to feel safe when they step onto our campus. And that's what I'm going to work hard to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris Glass.
Hi there. Again, I'll be redundant, and thank you all for... Anyway, thank you all for having us here tonight. It's always a great opportunity to come talk to folks about stuff that we're really passionate about. First I want to say I have a great deal of respect for everybody who's up here. It's not easy to run for an office. There's a lot that goes on. So thank you all for being here. I am an avid supporter of the incumbents. I'm an incumbent myself. I was appointed last year. So this is what I'm running for is the remainder of the term I was appointed to. So it's 2 more years. I do want to correct one statement, and we're not up here to kind of debate with each other. I do want to correct one thing. As far as the $250 million grant, grant, we actually did get part of that. I helped write the grant, so yeah, we can look at it. So that was actually a consortium of counties, including the Solano County Office of Education. Solano County Office of Education won $2.5 million of that. So Vacaville will have a part of that. We actually just had our first meeting the other day to talk about how we're going to spend that money. So there may be other grants. I just wanted to say for the career pathways, we actually did get a piece of that. So who am I? Why am I here? So I've been in Vacaville for 17 years now. I work at Genentech. I came up here to do the startup at Genentech and have been here ever since. I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked in facilities, I've been a strategic planner for a number of years for Genentech, and currently now run distribution, so I'm responsible for about $8 billion worth of product every year moving through Vacaville, so it's quite a lot. I'm a product of public education. My mother was a nurse, my father was a car salesman, we grew up in upstate New York in a trailer park. The one thing that I did have, the one access I had to help me get to where I am today is public education. So I'm a firm believer in that, and I firmly believe that that is an opportunity for every child in this district, and I want to do what I can to support it. I got my bachelor's degree at UCLA in biochemistry, and I was a sergeant in the military in the 101st Airborne, stationed over in the Middle East. I was an Arabic translator in military intelligence, so that's what I did. I have literally worked on peace in the Middle East. Literally. Met Yasser Arafat and Shimon Peres and everybody. So I can handle this. My master's is in business administration from UC Davis, so again, public education helped me there. The military helped pay off my loans for public education. I get up. It's okay, Peter. We're good. My two kids, he's not going to let it go. I am. My three kids all went to Vacaville Public Schools. They all graduated from Vaca High. Two of them got their degrees. Third one's in Sonoma State getting hers right now. So I experienced Vacaville Unified School District, and because I'm someone who likes to make sure that we get the best for our kids, I want to volunteer. I was part of the Citizens Oversight Committee. I was part of the Budget Advisory Committee. I helped tutor virtual enterprise at Vaca High for a number of years. So I'm very passionate about giving back because it was an opportunity I had, and I think it's important to give it to other folks. Since I have that capability, I want to make sure I use it to help the school district. I'm also an employer. I hire people every day. Well, not every day. It's been a little slow, but it's getting faster now as we start up the new plant. And I've seen some of the issues that we have in the level of education that folks who come to me have. Their ability to problem solve, their ability to deal with obstacles when they come up against it. So I want to make sure that we give them the best they can to solve that. So I'm almost out of time. My top three priorities: STEAM and 21st century education, career pathways, as Mr. Jeffries talked about, Common Core implementation, and maintaining a positive certification for the district, and get ourselves out of deficit spending. We're deficit spending for about the next 3 years, and then we should go positive, but I want to make sure that happens. I support Measure A, and again, a firm believer in Common Core and how we can make that a successful implementation in the district. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sean Wyndham.
Thank you. We'll see how this goes on the microphone thing. We'll see if I'm the jinx. Sorry, I don't know what one of these looks like because I actually play in a local band and I'm not allowed to get near one of these because of my voice, so I won't sing for you. Exactly. So my name is Sean Wyndham, and tell you a little bit about me. First thing is that I actually grew up in the Vacaville area. I actually grew up in the country, not in the county area, but I attended Vacaville schools. And I have 3 kids in the district. One is in elementary, one is in middle school, and one's in high school. So you can imagine pick up and drop off is a lot of fun. And I've been married for 16 years. My wife is here, so I appreciate that. I'm a police officer here in Vacaville. I've been working for Vacaville PD for about 21 years. That seems like a long time. I guess that's because it is. I've been a CSO, a community service officer for 2 years, and a police officer for 19. I think what kind of brought me to where I'm at right now is I worked for 4 years in youth services in our schools here in Vacaville as a campus police officer. I did our diversion program for a couple of years, and then I was basically, in addition to that, also a campus response officer, a school resource officer. In addition to that, I facilitated a parent project for about 10 years, working with parents that have they're having issues with students, with their kids, everything from attendance issues, academic performance issues, violence issues, even issues surrounding disability. So got a lot of opportunity to not only work with school district staff, but also with parents and kids in that role. And then finally, I was a detective in our family services unit for about 3.5 years. So I kind of got to work kind of the full spectrum, because in that role I kind of worked with families on a lot of different issues that were both in the home and outside of the home. So I think probably the number one reason that I'm running for the school board is because I'm a parent, because I want to see more for our schools. The one thing that I will tell you, in my opinion, I think we have fantastic teachers and district staff in this district, because I got to work with them on a myriad of issues. And I'll tell you what, I could be a police officer, but I couldn't work in the classrooms and work on campus and deal with some of the stuff that they do and have to address some of the stuff that they do. So my hat's off to them. But that's I think one of our greatest resources, and I think what we need to do is to build on the staff that we have, and build on that with things like educational choice within the district. What I mean by that, I'm going to call it vocational education, because vocational programs. CTE is what the terminology would be. The school districts have so many different terms, so I like to try to be as plain and simple so everybody understands them, because there's a lot of acronyms that the schools use. But that's a big push for me. So I kind of get right into, that's one of my main priorities. I want to see educational choice within the district. I want to see things like vocational programs, public safety academy. I think that things like that are going to give educational choice to both students and parents, and ultimately going to keep kids engaged, keep them in our district, and are going to keep them performing, I think, a little bit better, because kids honestly perform better, I think, when there's things out there that they can focus on, they can enjoy, and there's substance to it, and it becomes real for them. And hopefully I'll get a chance to talk a little more about that later. One of the other things, too, I want to just touch on as a priority of mine is technology. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being able to just play on a computer or the games that they play. I'm talking about really equipping our kids to go out not only to college, but also in the workforce and actually be prepared. And I think that's something that we're lacking. It's something we need to get a lot better at. And the last thing, as far as my priorities, and it's really tough to narrow it down to 3, because I have a ton of things that I would like to do over the next few years. But I think it's really, as a police officer working in youth services, I got to see not only what the kids and the teachers are experiencing on the school campuses and the issues that occur there, but see full circle about what goes on in the home. And sometimes I think we need to kind of look at wraparound services and get early intervention for these kids, because I saw from our perspective in youth services, we saw a lot of success with that, and that prevents a lot of issues down the line. So I'm running out of time here. I'll just say Common Core, I'm guardedly optimistic. I have some things maybe I'd like to have seen maybe a little bit differently with the rollout of it, but I do support it. And I do support Measure A. I think it's something that we need for our schools. I call some of the school campuses time capsules, because they're the same classrooms I was sitting in. I'm 41, so my kids are sitting in now. So I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll start the individual questions, and each will direct questions. We'll start with David this time and kind of go around, and the next question will start with Shelley, so we'll alternate. So that's plan A. So, okay, the first question deals with project labor agreements. And the question is, assuming that the $194 million Vacaville Unified School Bond Measure passes, Measure A, board members will have to make the decision whether or not to include PLAs in the bidding process. Question part A, are you confident in your knowledge of what PLAs are? And part B, based on what you know, would you support or reject PLAs as an integral part of construction projects paid for with bond funds, and why? David, we'll start with you. I'll let you go up there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Only a minute. Only a minute for this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I am actually. I've changed my mind. First of all, the first part of the question: are you confident that you know enough about PLAs? And the answer is now, yes. Prior to knowing what I know about PLAs now, I was supportive of them. But as I got more, I guess it's not appropriate for a school person to say educated on the issue, I come to realize that what a tremendous waste of resources it can be for a school district. One of the things that PLAs does do is it guarantees prevailing wage that the contractors who are doing the systems and the projects that you're involved in will be paying a prevailing wage, but that's unnecessary because that's already a state law if you're a public project, and these school projects would be public projects. So that really it doesn't carry any weight as far as I'm concerned. The other thing I've seen is a lot of waste in surrounding districts. I'm thinking in particular in West Contra Costa and Richmond and El Cerrito, where there have been things like high school football stadiums and a number of buildings which have been purchased or are built at tremendous overruns, cost overruns for the taxpayer, sometimes as much as 50% or more than the original estimate. That's largely thanks to PLAs. PLAs are not a good deal. The leaseback process that we have in Vacaville that we've used for our previous projects is the best deal. Just as an example, the Measure B projects that we have, Measure B was the initiative that passed in 2001. We managed to save over $1 million by using that leaseback process that we use, which is exactly the opposite of PLAs. So it is a money-saving opportunity for us. I oppose PLAs.
A long minute. Bob, raise that a little higher next time. We're good. I'll forgive you this time.
Mine will be short and sweet because are you confident in what you know? No. I'm in the process of learning. The bond is something that I'm working very hard on, and when we pass that bond and we begin to make decisions about where we're going to spend money, I will continue. I mean, I'm already continuing my education, but I have not made decisions as whether I would accept or reject until I know enough. So I'm in the process of learning, and I do agree with a lot of what Dave said. That's where I'm leaning, but I can honestly say I need to have some more meetings with people who know a lot more than I do at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to take credit for educating Dave about opposition to PLAs. I don't support PLAs. And I have here a little flyer that the three people here, you'll notice their signatures are on the bottom. And it's project labor agreement, and they support those. I don't support project labor agreements. I think I'm pretty well versed on them. As Dave said, they probably cost 10 to anywhere in excess of 25% more. They lock out local companies that are non-union. We do pay a prevailing wage, and if we we hire contractors, union contractors. They are allowed to hire non-union contractors if we don't do a PLA. We do our lease back. But if we do the PLA, we cannot hire economically non-union contractors, because not only do they have to pay the prevailing wage, but they also have to pay whatever the equivalent is of the benefits into the union benefit plan, which only goes to the union contractors and union employees, does not go to the employees of the non-union contractors. I don't support it.
So clearly we all have a difference of opinion. So I would just say that PLAs, here's the deal. Common sense is not so common, right? So at the end of the day, the beautiful thing of PLA is we all agree that local government is a good thing. And if we can keep our dollars local and support our local families and have a clause that says, you know, a PLA opens up a competitive bidding process and a non-union contractor comes in with the best bid that meets the criteria of the district can still be funded. It's not it's not a one or the other. It's a, let's give ourselves the opportunity to get the best bid, draw some guidelines of how we want to choose to do business as a school district. Do we want to hire local labor? Do we want to give minorities an opportunity? Do we want to give our local graduates an opportunity? Do we want to create opportunities for apprenticeship programs and keep our dollars, because your neighbor could work on building your school and now their dollars are being spent on our economic investment here. We're not just hiring a construction company way far. So at least leaseback is an option. It depends. It needs to be a project-specific process where we have the common sense to review all of the information we build in, the standard of business we want to conduct in Vacaville, and then make the best decisions per contract. But we should keep it an option as we're implementing Measure A, if we get that opportunity.
All right.
Well, thank you, Whit, for bringing in that flyer. In fact, my lovely wife has some copies I already made tonight to hand out to everyone, because apparently there's some misunderstandings about what PLAs are all about. So I want to make it really, really clear for you. A PLA is simply an agreement between the school district and a contractor that made the bid about certain things that we want to see from that contractor. For example, we can require that contractor hire veterans. We can require that contractor hire local businesses. We can require that contractor create internship programs so our students that come out of our high schools can go to work on the projects that our school district funds are paying for. It's a win-win-win. I don't see how anybody could actually look seriously at a PLA and not understand that as long as it's drafted correctly, as long as it's drafted well, it only can help our local community. That's all it can do. That's the key, though. We have to make sure it's drafted correctly and that we're thinking through all the provisions in the PLA, and we're not letting things happen that shouldn't be happening. For example, let's talk about a local PLA success story. You guys have all seen that beautiful new county building in Fairfield? That was built by a PLA under budget and before time. How can you argue with that? And we didn't have a company coming in from Arizona shipping in workers from out of state to work on that project. It was local people working on that project, and it came in under budget and under time. That's all I got to say.
Hi there. So the first part of the question, do I feel I am as well educated as I need to be on PLAs? I'll sit in Shelley's camp. Not yet. I've been studying it for a year. I've been talking with folks about it. Everybody's got facts. I've seen both sides of the argument. So as we go through Measure A, should that be successful, I'm open to hearing more. I have concerns about where PLAs are. The one thing that is interesting to me about it, in the community work agreement portion, the ability to create apprenticeships and career pathways for kids from schools, I'd love to see more done around that. Whether that has to be done through a PLA, I don't know, but I like the opportunity of making sure that those projects that get worked on here in Vacaville benefit the kids and create work for our folks here in Vacaville. So that part is interesting to me, but I'm still kind of learning a little bit more, and I'm reserving judgment until I learn more. Thank you.
Okay, so the first part of the question, am I as educated as I would like to be? I'm always open. I think I'm not an expert on PLAs. I'm going to throw that out there. I do know some. I feel fairly confident, but I'm still going to continue to educate myself on them. But I will say this. In general, I think there are some really good things that can come from PLAs. I think actually my opponent alluded to it, and I think things like developing, as part of a PLA, you can actually include language. In fact, I know of a community college near here that's actually done just that, where they've actually included language for their vocational programs, that those people that are in the program and that graduate the program get first bid at being apprentices in those programs, and I think that's beneficial. So I guess what I'm going to say is this, and I think it's been said a little bit tonight. For me, I'm not going to use the term always or never, because I think I want to be open-minded enough. I think it is somewhat project-specific. And in the end run, my understanding of a PLA, it really depends on how you write it and what kind of language you want to have in there. It's not necessarily a boilerplate that says it has to be this or that. It has a lot to do with how you write it and what you get out of it. So, thank you.
Last but not least, right? Thank you, Dory. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to be fairly short because I'm going to say I agree with Jeremy. Jeremy actually described what a PLA is. So anybody here can do their own research, but that's what you're going to find they do. PLAs have been around since the 1930s, so for about 80 years or so, they've been used to create good buildings. They've been used to create good working conditions for workers. They've been used to create good paying jobs. And therefore, all of that income, it goes back to the community. It helps our economy. It helps our local economy, our regional, and our statewide economy. It is an agreement between an agency and the contractor, and you can write it as you see fit. I really don't think there's very much more to say, except that we want buildings that are built correctly, built professionally, that use local labor, We want, we don't want fly-by-night contractors. We want trustworthy contractors. We want to be able to say when something is completed, it's been done well. And I frankly don't see anything wrong with people getting paid a decent wage, people having decent and safe working conditions. Nothing wrong with that. So yes, I would consider a PLA.
Thank you. Okay, our next topic. Okay. The next topic is parental rights, dealing with opt-out and with no retaliation for students. And according to California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress Office, statewide testing is required per federal and state accountability. However, parents do have the right to request an exemption for their child. Will you support parental rights to opt out of standardized testing, surveys, and data collection without any reprisals to students? And if so, how? Shelley, we'll start with you.
The answer is heavens yes. Absolutely no reprisals to any students, and definitely parents have that right. And I know that when I was a principal, am I stepping over? No. When I was a principal, we had different places those children could go if they were not taking the test. They were out on the playground, or we put them in rooms together and we did activities with them, and it was not a punishment. And parents had the right to do that, and I believe that is something that we need to continue to have for parents. I think one of the problems is the government tries to punish the schools who do not have the children take the test. So I think what our job is on the school board is to advocate at the state level and say, stop punishing our schools if the parents opt out, because that's where the problem is. And that's why parents are often encouraged by schools to have their children take the test, because if you have less than 95% of your children take the test, they think you're talking your parents into it, and therefore they give you sanctions. So that's where the glitch is. But of course, never a reprisal to children. Thank you.
I think Mrs. Daly about said it. Certainly I support parents' rights. I've had my kids there and I've gone over and advocated for them. I believe you do have the right to opt out, and you should have the right to opt out without any interference or sanction from the government. Having said that, I also think the more data you can collect, the wider the database, the more inclusive it is, probably the better your data is going to be. So I would like to see people not feel that they have to opt out. But if they choose that, that's their right, and they shouldn't be punished.
I agree. Shelley said it. I think all of us will say never a reprisal to children. Parents, I think the bigger issue is not do we support if parents have the right, because of course I think we all agree they absolutely have the right to advocate for their child's needs. I think the bigger question is, do parents know they have the right? So when we talk about communication and transparency, it's the idea, do our parents even know that their child has an opportunity to not take the test? And that's one of those things that our district doesn't do very well. So in a very similar situation, some of us were asked from a good friend of ours who is a huge proponent of, he doesn't believe in vaccines. And so I actually personally went to the district to ask about the waiver program. And the person at the front desk said, I can't help you with that. I know vaccines are mandatory. I said, no, I understand that they're mandated by law, but there's a waiver program for people to opt out. Oh no, your kids they can't go. I said, no, there's a waiver program, I promise. There's got to be someone here who knows this. Oh, I don't think they're here. Oh, can I have their phone number? So I called multiple times. I never got a phone call back. Went back again. And I had to work exponentially hard to get that information. And so it's the same thing. Parents have the right to make those kinds of choices, and they need to know they have the right to make those choices.
Thank you.
Let me tell you a short story about opting out on standardized testing. 6 years ago, in my 7th grade history class, I had a student that was the first day that we were doing the STAR test. And this 7th grade girl was sitting there halfway, in the middle of my classroom here. And I could tell before we even took the test that she was getting really worked up. She was getting, really just wound up about this test. 5 minutes into the test, this girl comes across a question on the test that she couldn't answer. Because there had been so much pressure that had been put on her by the school, by her parents, by the community, that this girl started breaking down and crying in the middle of my class. Later that day, I called home and I had a conversation with mom and dad, that daughter, and I said, hey, do you know that you guys have the opportunity to opt out of this? Because I did that, because I was a teacher and I had that conversation with that parent, I actually got written up. Because Ed Code says that teachers are not allowed to divulge that information just to parents. And one piece of Ed Code that I think is completely wrong. The district knows that students can opt out. They don't tell students that because exactly what Shelley was talking about. Because the district has to meet that 95% standard. So they don't go out and advocate for students and let parents know this. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Anyway. It's me. I'll scream. Yes, Laura. No. If it is certainly, there we go. If it's certainly Ed Code, absolutely. If a parent chooses to opt out, I would never want to see reprisals to a child. That's insane. I think what Shelley's pointing out is really where the issue is, and certainly would support doing something about that. Again, with WIT, I'm going to agree with what he said. I'm a certified Six Sigma Black Belt. I'm a data guy. It's kind of what I do. I like data, and it can be helpful. But there's a lot of good reasons why a parent would want to opt out, and I would want to support them for that. So thank you.
Well, I guess the easy thing would be say ditto and sit down, but right, exactly. I agree with what Shelley said. I think the biggest problem with this issue is the state level, and I think that's where it sets up a lot of this almost an adversarial issue with the districts. But I think the bottom line is two things I'm going to say, and I'll just make this brief. Parental choice needs to be supported, and that's kind of one of the reasons I was talking about having parental choice within the district with different kinds of vocational programs and so forth, because I think that's critical, and I think that's lacking in our district and many others. The other thing is just the word, I think reprisal was the term that was used. I mean, that has no place regardless of what's going on with the student. I mean, there's times when you hold a student accountable for their behavior, certainly, but reprisal across the board shouldn't happen toward the parent or toward the student.
Okay, well, he wouldn't say ditto, but I will. And I'll just say that parents rule. We're it. The people we elect, they're not the rulers. They're not the VIPs. Everybody who gets elected, they act like a VIP, but they really aren't. We are the VIPs. The people are the VIPs. It's a learning institution. It's not a prison. You can opt out. A parent, if it's the law, you have the right to do that. Period. Not a big question about it. And as far as reprisal goes, that's unconscionable. That is definitely not something that should happen in any school district, anywhere. And frankly, I don't think it would happen here in Vacaville Unified.
Well, I'll go on to live here. I support reprisals. Of course not. The very question is absurd. There's no possible way that anyone, I think, can or should support that kind of thing. But I want to make pretty clear here, when the issue of vaccinations, for example, was brought up, and Shelley, I agree with everything you said there, the issue really is more at the state level than it is at the local level. However, it's important when parents do, whether they opt in or opt out of anything, that they be well informed, that they make an informed choice. And it is up to, I think, us as leaders to make sure that they get all the information that they need. Vaccinations, I think, is a very good example. Yes, you have the right, for example, to opt out of a vaccination that is required by law for your child to attend kindergarten. Is it advisable? In my opinion, no. But again, you as a parent have the right to do that. What I want you to have as a parent is all the information you need to make that choice intelligently. Pro, con, whatever, all of it. So that then when you do opt out, you've made an informed choice. That is the most critical piece here in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. On to the next topic. And the next topic is local control of education. And the question is, with all of the federal and state mandates currently placed on education, in which areas would you like to see more local control placed back into the hands of elected school board? And specifically, what are you willing to do to regain the local controls that are outlined in the CA Ed Code? Sorry? Or, I'm sorry.
The local school board really doesn't have a lot of control. Everything is top down for us. Our budget, our money comes from the state and the federal government, basically. When we ran our budget, 90% of our funds approximately already go for salaries. When we funded local control, we were talking about 10% or less of the budget. Maybe $5.5, $6 million actually is what we got down to spending on local control. So that's what kind of control we have. It's not very much. I'd like to see more of that. It has gotten better. We don't have categorical categories like we used to. It had to be spent on this, couldn't be spent on that. We've gotten better that way. What I'm willing to do to regain more local control, this has to come from the top up. So I'm willing to go to Sacramento, talk to our state legislators, our federal legislators, and say, we need a little bit more control. But this all happened years ago because we went off the reservation, we being school boards, and we went way over to one side. And you can't go way over to one side and then go way over to the other side again, and that's what's happened. I've always tried to drive kind of down the center of the road.
Thank you.
So I agree that first and foremost, the advocacy at the state level, maybe I shouldn't touch that, is probably one of the most important things our school board can do that we have direct control over. Separately from that, I think the local control funding formula is just an unprecedented opportunity for boards to restructure how they do business and gain control of process of engagement of our community, of partners, of engaging with our teachers, with our students, with our parents, with businesses, and really advocating for more participation, for school safety. I think if you talk to, we have some wonderful schools here, but if you talk to every administrator, they enforce their dress code 13 different ways. They enforce their discipline policy many different ways. So as a board, we can absolutely set standards, we can set policy and then enforce those standards and policy so that it's very predictable in this district. No matter what school you're at, this behavior will result in this consequence. If you wear this shirt, you're going to have to change it. And it doesn't matter what campus you walk onto. There's an equitable standard. And I think the board has absolute control of those things. And just really, this local control funding, we can do business very differently. We can prioritize, we can find cost savings to reallocate dollars, and it's a huge opportunity to regain control.
Thank you.
Well, I spent many years as a U.S. history teacher, and I think 12 times in my life now I've sworn an oath to uphold the ideals of the United States Constitution, and probably because of that I have a very strict interpretation of what I think the Constitution is all about and how it should be viewed by the public. And I'm a very strict constitutionalist. For example, I see that education is the state's right, so I ask myself all the time, why do we have the U.S. Department of Education?
Amen.
Personally, I believe that the greatest control in government should be at the lowest level of government. That's truly what I believe. And I agree with what Whit said, that often at this point, the school board doesn't have a lot of options or a lot of control, which is kind of unfortunate. But one of the things that we do have control of, like Tracy was talking about, is the LCAP and what gets funded and how it gets funded and what gets paid for, and that has a huge influence. But I also think that we as school board members have a great opportunity to also drive change at the state level. Judy and Tracy and myself are endorsed by State Assembly Member Jim Frazier. And the three of us have sat down several times now and had conversations about what we would like to see changed at the state level when it comes to education. We would like to see more funding for the CTE programs, make it easier for the state to acquire, the teachers to acquire state CTE credentials, things like that. Things that are actionable that they can actually take action on at the state level and make change. And I think if we start working from that angle, we can actually make a huge change. So just the funding at the local level, but then also work at the state level with our state legislators to try to drive that change.
Thank you.
Okay, so the one thing that concerns me the most, so as has been mentioned, we have gained a little bit more local authority with the local control funding formula, the LCAP that's required, the removal of categorical funds to allow us to direct monies in a little bit more local way. But the one thing that's really concerning me is our ability to manage our reserve. So for those of you who don't know, there was a rider that was put through in the budget this year in California that's going to put a cap on what our reserve can be. And that's going to take away from us the ability to manage our reserves in what we just went through. You know, if we didn't have the ability to manage our reserve at a higher level to weather the storm that we went through, we would not have maintained the positive certifications that we were able to maintain. Losing that is a very, very concerning step for me. And so that's one thing I'd like to see us do more to see if we can prevent.
Thank you.
So now you did it for me.
I did it.
Thanks a lot. So in general, I'm just going to say this, and again, it feels like I'm saying ditto to some degree, but I think that the vast majority of control needs to be, like was said, at the lowest possible level. You know, one of the things that I noticed working in youth services and working on a variety of different campuses, and I think this was already mentioned, different campuses, even within the same district, function differently. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And in a lot of ways, they have to do that. You have to kind of understand that. So add to that, different districts function differently. There needs to be enough control at the district level to be able, I think, to allocate funds and to set up programs and things that are going to work within that district. Because you can't, I think the problem is a lot of times the state and of course the federal government likes to give these one-size-fits-all type of ideas and philosophies and programs, and they legislate based on that. And that doesn't work, and I think it really doesn't work in education. So I think we do need as much control locally as we can possibly get to spend the money the way we need to spend the money, develop those programs, and to be successful.
Thank you.
Okay. In my opinion, you get what you take. Speaking of being endorsed by folks, I'm endorsed by Jim Frazier as well as Mariko Yamada. So I know just about every state legislator that represents our area. I think our school board members need to be a lot more active at letting our legislators know what we want and what we don't want. You get what you take. We've got the local control funding formula, so we don't have categorized funding anymore. That's great. And we need to take full advantage of that. We need to really put some thought into our budgeting and our priorities in that process. But to sit and kind of let, and again, I'm for the ideals expressed by Common Core, but to just kind of let that happen. January 2010, it was approved by the Senate, our Senate. I didn't hear about it in January 2010. I don't know how many of you did. I don't call that information being shared. Maybe the board knew. I don't know. But we, the end user of the product, we're the ones, our children are the ones who are being taught the new standards. We need some say, the local school board needed, I'm not sure how much say they had in putting together those new standards, but it doesn't seem like they had a lot. We have got to be more involved, more plugged in, more engaged with our state legislators.
So for those of you keeping score at home, Jim Frazier has endorsed 4 people for 3 seats. Yes. maybe we could do some Common Core
Common
math.
Core math, yeah.
Anyway, but obviously, yes, local schools need more control than they have, and local school districts and local school boards need more control than they have. So much, as Whit said, so much of what we get is top-down administration. This is exactly wrong, especially in education. It's the local communities that know best. So to that extent, we do have board members that are very actively engaged with the state legislature and our personal representatives, our state representatives, talking with Mrs. Yamada when she was our representative, and Mr. Frazier and Mrs. Wolk, and encouraging them all the time to lighten up on the strings that are attached to most of our funding. Now, what we have now is a great opportunity with the local control funding formula, where the state has removed a great many of the categoricals. Some do still exist, so there's more work to be done. But we do have tremendous opportunities here at the local level now because of the funding mechanism that we have from the state of California. And that's what the LCAP is about, and I look forward to implementing that.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of good information shared about the LCFF, the local control, the LCAP, etc. The one thing that I think is something that we need more control over is the schools that are in program improvement are in there because of No Child Left Behind, which was a federal thing that came down, and the state pushed it, and our schools were sanctioned if their scores did not reach certain levels. By 2014, everybody was supposed to be proficient. I don't know about you, but the bell curve exists, and I don't know that we could have reached their definition and their test worthy of what they said proficient was. I don't know. But schools are being punished because of that. So if I were to pick what I would love to work on, it would be lift the sanctions of program improvement, let the local school boards work with their schools that have struggling students and put their resources there and make sure that all students are getting the education they need, rather than punish the staff, punish the administration at that school. It's ridiculous. The morale at those schools goes down. Those teachers are already working incredibly hard, and we are not looking at what the actual problems are. We're looking at why those kids couldn't pass a test. And there's a lot of issues about why those kids didn't pass the test. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and the microphone's about. Good. Excellent. Thank you all for those answers. Greatly appreciated. Okay, the next topic is new curriculum review. And just background, with the implementation of Common Core state standards in English and math, K through 12, it's currently in full swing, and new science and social studies standards are coming shortly. This means that new curriculum will soon be adopted for nearly all students at nearly all grade levels. Because there's been significant controversy across the country over some of the new curriculum that's available, will you be willing to support parent and citizen collaboration with teachers and staff as part of a review process prior to the selection and adoption of specific tests? If so, how would you propose to implement such a plan?
So I have to say that I think Dolores took the nail on the head as far as how we implement Common Core, how we navigate the decisions that have already been made and the next board and the opportunities moving forward. Some of these decisions have already been made, and we're going to have to live with them. But if I had an opportunity, if I am voted, I will push hard for, just last night, maybe 2 nights ago, the district did host kind of a Common Core university, get to know Common Core. Don't know how many people were there, but that's a great step in the right direction. I just wish we would have done it 2 years ago. I wish we would have had the conversation of, here are our text options, here's our curriculum options, here's why we think it's going to be great, here's why we think it's not going to be so great, and get some input so that we could then do the data dump. Because to Chris's point, we do have to have some data so we can have some benchmarks, so we can have some predictability in what we're going to teach our students, and make sure that it's going to work for the most. We know that one size does not fit all. We know that not one curriculum is going to work for all 12,000 of our students or however many hundred per grade. But at the end of the day, if we've done due diligence, hopefully we'll have included enough robust stakeholder process to all agree we've picked the best one.
Thank you very much.
All right, textbook adoptions. Now, we probably all already in the room already know that the school board is charged with officially adopting textbooks. here's how I believe that the textbook adoption process should work. Who is the expert when it comes to education, and who knows the kids' needs best? The teachers in the classroom, right? That process should start with the teacher in the classroom, and they should pull in information from the students, from the parents, the community members, not the school board. We're not the experts on the textbooks. I've never taught my wife over here is a math teacher. I've never taught math. I'm terrible at math. So don't ask me about a textbook adoption for math. But what I want to hear is, as a school board member, I want to make sure that that group of teachers has collaborated with students, parents, community members, to make sure that together that group has come up with the best textbook possible for whatever that class might be. And I think our role as a school board should just be to make sure that collaboration takes place, and if it has, good to go.
Thank you.
So it's already been covered, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Absolutely, I would support more parental voice. A diversity of opinions in the adoption of any textbook is going to be a requirement. And in fact, they've actually implemented that at Vacaville, so Mark Frazier has pulled that together. So as it is actually a new program, I think within the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that they'll actually be doing that. So you're welcome to participate in that program. You're welcome to share your voice as we do textbook adoption. And I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you.
So I think the question was, would I support parental and teacher involvement? Not only would I support it, that is something that I think is probably one of the most critical things that a board member needs to do. And I think it's not just on the issue of textbooks. I think it's across the board. I want to see the board get parents and teachers and students, I want to add to that students, more involved and get information from the people that are using the product in the classrooms, the people that are the students that are consuming it, and the parents as well. One of the things I just want to kind of throw out there, I don't think it's been mentioned yet with the textbooks, and why I think it's so important that you have parental involvement in particular. You know, for me, I'm like Jeremy. I'm lucky if I can add 2 plus 2. Math is not my thing, right? But as a parent, I still need to be able to help my kids, and when it comes to Common Core, I need to be able to have tutorials, and there's certain programs have different tutorials that are going to help me as a parent be more successful helping my kids. Because right now, my kids crack a book and say, "Help me," I'm not going to be able to do it, and I think that's very important. We're only going to get that information from parents. So that's just something I want to throw out there that's really critical, I think.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. I think anytime that you get parents involved, that's a good thing. I think anytime you get the community involved, that's a good thing. I think teachers are at the ground, what I call the street level. They know what's going on. We need more street level thinking, less on high thinking. So yes, I am in agreement with having a committee process, so long as it's a process where people are not trying to win, where they're actually trying to collaborate and work together to come up with a solution. Parents are the biggest partners of educators. They are often left out. I don't know if you know this, but nearly a third of our district students are Hispanic. Some of our Hispanic parents are illiterate. We should be doing something to address that issue. We should not expect the kids to be teaching the parents. We need to find better ways to get parents involved, and a lot of it's communication. The district does have some good things going on, a lot of the time, but how many of us hear about them? Or do we just hear about them as by accident? So there definitely needs to be a better communications process, and we need to, actually, the LCAP requires that the district do more outreach to the parents of disadvantaged students. So we have to get on it.
Thank you.
And we are doing that. One of the things that we have in the next couple of weeks, which is a very exciting program, is something called Family Math Night. It's done by every single elementary school in our district. It's where we invite in the evening entire families into the schools to talk and do interactive activities relating to mathematics and how it's being taught now. This is how you bring people in. It's fun, it's interesting, it gets the parents involved in the new ways their kids are learning these mathematical concepts. We're very excited about that, and that's something that you can look for in all of your elementary schools over the next several weeks. So that's just one thing. Yes, I think it goes without saying that the parents are not just a good partner of our educators, but parents are the driving force behind a child's education. And the teacher is really more the assistant or the partner. It's the parent that needs to be involved. We are doing everything we can on a consistent basis. We are not in charge of the media, so we can't really, we can't promise that things will get published or aired. We do the very best we can. But I can tell you one thing that this district does very, very well compared to, you want to say 8, 9, 10 years ago, is that communication piece that we've been talking about tonight. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the way this district was run in the early 2000s, but I can tell you it is night and day, and that is largely thanks to the efforts of Mr. Whitman and myself.
Thank you.
Of course, parent input is required and needed. And I would love to hear from some of you some of the ways that you think would be good ways to get parents in, because I know they did that university night last night, which I think was amazing. They had people at tables with all of the books they're using. They had people there to explain Common Core. It was advertised in the newspaper. It was on the gateway of every computer page. There were news notes sent out. Every principal noted in their news note, and there were 12 parents there. Okay, and one community member and the rest teachers. And it wasn't a huge crowd, but thank goodness those people were there, and some people got a new education. So unfortunately, people often step out when it's done, and they're upset about it. What we need to do is get people involved ahead. How do we get people to take responsibility for doing it up front? And if you have any suggestions, I'm more than welcome, because I know it's something we're working very hard on. I think the family math nights are a way to get them there. I always said at school, if we want the parents to come, we got to have the kids sing, and then the parents are coming, And so it's like every class you need to sing at least once. So we can't run a whole district singing, but any kind of communication, that anything that you have in order to help us with communication, it would be very well appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will I support parent and citizen collaboration with teachers and staff as part of the review process prior to the selection and adoption of specific tests? Certainly. Why not? It's a good problem, a good program. How would we implement this? Everybody's alluded to the fact that parents are the crux of the problem here, so to speak. As I've been told by people I've talked to around the system, if they gave us better parents, we'd have better students because there'd be better enrollment. And that's really pretty true. I sit on the SARB panel, and I see all the kids that won't come to school and starts in elementary school. And as I said earlier, if we get good attendance earlier, it's going to give us better graduation rates later. So how would I propose to implement such a plan? We already have, and we post our text adoptions in our meeting agendas. And people are free to read those and look at them. And if they have questions or comments on them, they can come to the district. And tonight is the first family math night at Orchard, which I had hoped to attend, but I'm here instead. And I know Dave, through his good offices with KUIC, is going to publish the rest of them over the radio, right?
Listen Monday morning, we'll be interviewing.
That's everyone's answered that one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Next question.
Tracy? Okay. We have about 5 other questions, but we're out of time. So I think we'll end it right here and just say thank you again to all of you. We so appreciate you coming. So stand and give them